Hey, I hope you're having a great day. This is Elan, and today I'm joined by Emer Byrne. And Emer is an IVF survivor, having been through 6 rounds of IVF over 10 years, which took a mental and physical toll on her body. Her mental health struggles through her roller coaster fertility journey led her to believe she was not good enough, which resulted in self-soothing through food and drink, which led to weight gain and feeling sluggish. During the COVID pandemic, Emer lost 5 stone through a slimming group to aim to get in the best shape of her life for her last cycle. Unfortunately, that last cycle, which was a year ago now, didn't work either. And Emer and her partner Tom made the decision to stop. Emer supported herself mentally during her last cycles by doing a 15-month diploma in mindfulness and positive psychology, and now is a qualified mindfulness coach. And now, having decided to stop fertility treatment, Emer is working on losing weight for her this time, focusing on getting and feeling fitter and eating healthier. She has also quit alcohol and is coming up on 100 days alcohol-free. Further, she has converted her pain to power and now runs a business called Moments of Sparkle to help girls still on the fertility roller coaster to reconnect with their sparkle within. Emer, how are you doing today?
Great, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely no problem. I've been really looking forward to having a chat and diving into a few different things, and it's really powerful to hear your story, because it's obviously a very, as you mentioned in the intro, just a roller coaster that you've been through. So it's it's really cool to see how many positives you've taken out of it, and to set up Moments of Sparkle as well. So that's been cool. And how long have you been running Moments of Sparkle for?
Yeah, so I suppose I've been a qualified mindfulness coach coming up on nearly 2 years now. And I set up Moments of Sparkle officially as a business last September.
Nice.
So, and I suppose specializing in the fertility space since last Christmas. So, like originally I was trying to do everything. And then I realized that I needed to specialize in what my passion is. And that's supporting girls who are still on the road.
Yeah, and there must be just countless numbers of.
Absolutely. Yeah. I suppose I know a lot, and I suppose I'm very active on social media and shared my fertility journey on social media. A lot of people don't, I suppose, want to share it. I mean, it's just maybe their partner who knows, and that's fine too. I've always been very open about mine, but there are lots of people that are struggling silently, and there's no need to be, because you're not alone. I did a webinar last night with a number of girls. I had the 4 corners of Ireland represented, which was
Nice.
amazing. And I even had a lady from Canada in Toronto. So it's not just an Irish thing, it's a worldwide thing. And I suppose for anyone that's listening, that's on the journey, you're not alone.
Yeah, I think that's the most important thing, because I've noticed that a lot over the last few years. I've worked with hundreds of different women from all works of life, or from all walks of life, and
Mhm.
it's been a high percentage of them who at some point have done IVF either successfully or unsuccessfully. And I've been able to have a glimpse into the impact that that's had on them as well, because
Mhm.
build up a good relationship with a lot of people, and they're comfortable enough to share certain things. So yeah, so that's amazing that you've set that up, because I think for a lot of people it would probably go unspoken if there wasn't someone brave like yourself who was happy to put yourself out there, because there's always going to be a lot of people suffering in silence, and obviously there's nothing worse than that.
Yeah, 100%. And some people go around, and I was that person myself. When I started IVF, and my family would say, how are you? And I'd say, I'm fine. I wasn't fine at all. I was dying inside. And I suppose through learning mindfulness, and my main tools, I suppose, are mindfulness, journaling, and counseling. Through all of those things and other things, I suppose I learned to realize that I wasn't fine, and that I needed to mind my mental health. And that's why I now do what I do and support other girls still on the path.
Mhm. Yeah, I don't know if it's like an Irish thing, or maybe it's just something in general, but I think that's always the standard response, isn't it? If someone asks you, "Oh, how are you getting on?" It's like, "Oh yeah, grand or fine." And I
Yeah.
mean, like in 90% of the times we're probably not fine, So
Mhm.
I always make an effort, when someone asks me how I'm doing, to actually be honest about it. So, if I'm feeling tired, I'll tell you I'm feeling tired. If I'm feeling great, I'll tell you I'm feeling great. And
Mhm.
just try and be honest about it, because I hate that, trying to like avoid it and just be like, I am grand, because like I think most of us, most days are not grand. There's always, something. So yeah, I think it's just being brave enough to, allow yourself to be just a little bit vulnerable to share that is a,
Yeah, and there's power, you might feel like, oh, I can't go there, if when somebody asks you. But the more open and honest you are, actually, the better for yourself, And I found that leaning on your support network, and it's something I encourage my clients to do in our initial sessions, realizing who your support network is and who you can lean on,
yeah.
because you don't have to do it alone. A lot of the appointments and injections and medications and all of that, you go through that as a person, obviously, but you don't have to do it alone, as in the journey alone. And there are people you can talk to if you wish. Obviously, it's a personal thing,
Mhm.
but if you do open up to at least a couple of trusted people in your circle, it's definitely a help rather than being on your own.
Yeah, for sure. And that goes for anything. I always
100%. Yeah.
it's having a community of like-minded people, or as you said, even if it's just one or two people who kind of understand and
Mhm.
you can talk to, is so powerful. Because that's been something I've been focusing on a lot more, with all of the women that I work with, is just kind of trying to set up a bigger community of people who are, able to share ideas. And, we've done some community days recently as well, and plan to do some more over the next few months. So it's just makes such a difference when you have people who are actually supportive of your journey, because not everybody is, unfortunately. That's just the reality, isn't it?
Yeah, but you're look, if we were all the same, it would be a boring world.
Yeah, no, definitely. So I was really interested about the course that you did. So that was it roughly like 15 months in total?
Yeah, so I actually started it at the start of the COVID pandemic, around the start of the COVID pandemic, the first, we'll say one. um, yeah, so I suppose I had come across mindfulness through my, I think it was after my third cycle, a work colleague recommended mindfulness. And I was like, oh, I need a bit of, I try anything, as I used to say to a friend of mine, I'd walk down Patrick Street and stand on my head naked if I thought it was going to work. You'd do anything. So to get pregnant, I mean, now, just to be clear what I'm talking about. So yeah, so I came across this lady with Shireen was doing this mindfulness morning in Cork. And then I subsequently went on to do an 8-week stress reduction through mindfulness course with her. And then during the pandemic, I realized, gosh, I have all this time on my hands, let's use it productively. So I
Mhm.
signed up to a slimming group and started losing weight. And I also said I need to mind my mental health. And I really was enjoying mindfulness and what it brought me in life. And I said, maybe I could help other girls as well. So I joined up to that 15-month diploma with Institute of Mindfulness Academy with Carmel Fannin in Dublin. And because it was the pandemic, it was all virtual, which
Mhm.
was fantastic. So I didn't have to travel, and I could do it all online. Um,
Nice.
and most of the people who were on my course, I never actually met them. But we connected fantastically virtually. And it just goes to show, and that's why I now work in the virtual world. All the work I do primarily is on Zoom, and that it's possible to form those connections. I did actually meet one of the girls from my course just at the weekend, or the last few days, Kira, who also has a mindfulness business, Cam with Kira. And we met in person after 3 years, and it was like as if we always knew each other in person, So
Yeah.
the virtual world is just powerful, really, the connections that you can make.
Yeah, for sure. Because like most people are so busy with, working full time, or if they have a family or they've got other things, or taking care of their their elderly parents, or whatever, so it's like,
Mm.
just makes so much sense when you can literally just grab your phone or put your laptop on, and it doesn't matter if you're in Canada or Australia, or I've worked with some people who are literally in New Zealand, 12-hour time difference.
Yeah.
So it's amazing how powerful that is, because obviously time is our most important asset. You never get
Mm.
it back. So I always dread the thought of like, oh, imagine wasting 45 minutes to go and drive somewhere to go do something. You could literally just, hop on a call, and we can do it right now.
Yeah, exactly. Like last night, there was people from like all counties in Ireland. It was just amazing. I was here in my spare room,
Yeah.
So yeah.
No, that's amazing. Yeah. And the course sounds really interesting. Um, so, like mindfulness, obviously like a very, it's a very like big topic over the last few years, which is great, because I think, even if you look at the awareness around the importance of mind and your mental health now versus like even like 10 or 15 years ago, I was thinking about this, like even like, because I'm only 29 now, but even 10 years ago, like nobody was talking about, oh, take care of your mental health or manage your stress, or just it
Mm.
was kind of swept under the rug. So it's been,
Yeah, and it was something as well I didn't think I would need to worry about. You know what I mean? I was very lucky in terms of my upbringing, amazing family and parents, achieved very well academically in school. Never had, I was bullied in school, but I mean, other than that, I've never really had any difficulties. I'm in national school now. I mean, secondary school was fine, but um I suppose, yeah, I always thought that I would never have, an issue in life, or need to worry about my mental health. And I suppose it was only when, when I heard, I suppose when I was told that IVF was our best chance of conceiving, because that's literally what I was told. I was told you will likely never conceive naturally, and your best chance is IVF. I thought, oh, sure, great. We know now what the issue is. We'll go and do that. And went and did that, and not realizing what was ahead of me, the roller coaster that was ahead of me, and the fact that I would need to pull myself out of mental health holes, I call them, a number of times in that roller coaster. And that there are various tips and tricks to do that, particularly from a mindfulness perspective. Also, obviously, there's the medication, right? And I have been on antidepressants in my 10 years of roller coaster, and there's no shame in that. I think there's still a bit of a stigma out there about medication. I'm not on any medication now currently, but I have been in the past, and there's nothing at all wrong with it. So I think it's really important to acknowledge that there is help out there, and it is okay to struggle. I've struggled myself, and there is no shame in it.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think that's like the anchor that keeps people underwater, essentially, is the shame attached to
Mm.
different things. Because
Mhm.
I know when I was struggling for, well, like I still struggle from time to time, for sure, definitely not perfect, but when I was in like the worst phase of depression and feeling just like terrible, I felt like there was literally like a ball and chain around my ankle, and just like underwater half the time. So
Mhm.
it's like when you let go of, or start to unravel a lot of that shame, or any of the different things that have kind of built up over the years,
Mhm.
it's like you're 10 kilos lighter, and you've got this weight lifted off you, and it feels very freeing, which is an amazing feeling. uh,
Mhm.
but yeah, I think it's just being brave enough to take that initial step to reach out, and as you said,
Exactly.
like
Yeah.
do mindfulness, or working with a therapist, or whatever your first step is. That it's different for everybody, but just having the courage to just take that first step is a big thing.
Yeah, and even talking with your GP, I've been lucky to always have an amazing GP who lives locally here to me. Just even chatting with them, and they'll help guide and direct you as well. That's part of what they do. You
Yeah.
know, um, so yeah, it's hugely important, I suppose, to reach out and to not feel alone, because it is such a lonely journey. Even that was the word I suppose that came across on the call with the girls that joined last night. They were all saying it's so lonely,
Mhm.
and it is, but you don't have to do it alone. And there is lots of support out there. Well, when I say lots of support, I mean, that's the reason I set up the business I set up, because I found a
Yeah.
huge gap in the market, from a perspective of the support, because you go to the fertility clinic, and while there might be a counselling session included, as part of your treatment, there's maybe 1 or 2 counselling sessions. It's not near enough.
No.
And then when you finish with the fertility treatment, with the fertility clinic, you're kind of, let go. They never call you afterwards to know, well, they do first to do a review after your session, but that's it then. You don't get a call 6 months later to check in. How are you doing now? Regardless of the fact that you've spent thousands.
Yes.
So that's why I suppose I feel that Moments of Sparkle is a service to help people on the road, to help them. I'm not for 1 second offering, because this is what was offered by many quacks that I came across in my journey when I was trying anything to work. People would say, I can guarantee you a baby. Nobody can
Oh,
guarantee you a baby, but I can guarantee that I can help you rekindle your sparkle within. And that's what the service I offer, to help you from a mental health roller coaster perspective.
yeah, that's amazing. I think it's always not necessarily a full red flag, but it's definitely a bit of a bad sign if there's something so sensitive like that and somebody gives you an absolute guarantee.
Yeah.
It maybe is a bit of it's definitely a red flag when it comes to pregnancy and stuff like that.
But I suppose when you're in that space, you do, if somebody says, oh, you do this, and you're more or less guaranteed, you do it because you think it'll work.
Yeah. And then it's quite bad on their part as well, because whether they're aware of it or not, they're definitely taking advantage of someone who they know really wants this amazing thing, which is, yeah, that's very poor form, to say the least.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Just if I may, Elan, define mindfulness for anyone that's listening to this podcast and they're wondering what in the hell is she talking about.
Yeah, definitely.
If that's okay. So mindfulness is, it is summed up in one word, is the word focus. It's just literally paying attention to what is going on in the present moment. And there are a number of different ways to cultivate mindfulness. There's the formal mindfulness, which is meditation, and there's informal mindfulness, which is things like mindful walking, mindful eating, all of that. While I am a mindfulness coach, I'm not mindful all the time because I'm human. It's not possible, but I suppose what mindfulness has allowed me to cultivate is that kind of internal realization, and very much in connection with what's going on for me. So when sadness is present, I realize it. When happiness is present, I realize it within. That's what mindfulness has given me. Mindfulness is not about emptying the brain of thoughts. In fact, it's the opposite. It's sitting with what's going on the inside, as I call it. What's the weather like on the inside? And being okay no matter what that is, and realizing that no matter what thought or feeling, that nothing can overtake you, nothing can bury you, even though you think it might be, as you say, underwater in the way you describe it. I call it in the deep dark hole. You think it might, but it won't. And when you trust it, be with it, go through it, and come out the other side, that's where the healing happens. So that's, I suppose, mindfulness has allowed me to play with my deck of cards for what they are and to be grateful for what I have as opposed to what I have not. So that's my summary of mindfulness.
Nice. Very well put. Yeah, for sure. I was actually going to ask you about that. Like, what do you feel like is maybe 2 or 3 of the most effective forms of mindfulness, or things that in your personal experience have found you to be more present in the moment and, to feel less stress, but then also to be in a good headspace where you're able to just, experience, any of those feelings that do pop up and kind of just,
Be with them.
address them and be with them as they are. Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose, well, the meditation for me is a huge thing. And I would meditate every morning before I get out of bed. Even recently, funny story, I slept in one morning recently, and because I have a routine of meditating, I realized I'd slept in and I was like an hour later or more getting up than I would usually be. But I was like, I need to meditate now first and just calm the nervous system before I get out of bed, or it's going to be a disaster of a day. So I still meditated for 5 minutes, even though I'd slept in. And I was telling my mom, and she was like, you have slept in and you actually did a meditation. But, when you take, regardless of how late you are or whatever, or, what might be going on for you, taking 5 minutes is not going to upend your day, you
No.
know. And I think it's so important. So meditation to me is huge. And meditation, I suppose, it has been proven, that it does shrink your amygdala, that part of your brain that is in a fight flight response, or that can, be activated by danger. It does, shrink your amygdala and allow your prefrontal cortex to make those decision making. So I would say meditation has given me the ability to be a lot more calmer, and I'm not calm every day, but I'm calm most of the time because I'm human.
Yeah.
So meditation is one. Another is mindful walking. So mindfulness doesn't have to just be meditation. It can be getting out in the fresh air. For me, it's a beach or a woodland, and I live very rurally here in West Waterford. So, it's really beautiful here as well. So getting out for a walk and literally using your senses to step out of the busyness of your mind. So focusing on maybe 5 things you can see, 4 things you can hear, 3 things you can smell. And when you do that and use your senses, you can step out of what's going on in your head. So mindful walking is for sure a big thing for me. And getting out in nature is so powerful and healing. I think I was definitely a fish in a prior life because I love the sea and love going to the beach. So that's for sure, I suppose, the second thing from a mindfulness perspective. And then a third thing, and something I talk about a lot in my toolbox, is journaling. So, and that when I say journaling, I mean free form journaling. I mean literally just taking out a little notebook. It doesn't have to be anything grand. It can even be just a page in a paper and writing whatever is in your head. And journaling has allowed me to be with those overwhelming feelings, like sadness or anger or jealousy, or those not nice feelings. Journaling has allowed me to be with them and to kind of get out of my head and onto a page what's going on and figure out what the weather is like on the inside. So journaling is a huge thing for me, and I suppose it's an ambition of mine to create a journal for girls on the IVF roller coaster, and I will do that someday.
Nice. That sounds really good. Yeah, it's really nice to. I'd categorize all of those into like a self-care list for sure. And they're always like at the top of the list. And definitely taking your phone and getting that, like, it doesn't have to be like completely gone, but just being aware that when you're on your phone, you're not present in the moment, and that's not going to help with being in a really good relaxed state of mind. So I always make a point of it in the evening, even if I'm just like watching TV with my girlfriend, like I'm not on my phone, I'm being present, we're just enjoying that together. Or as you said, when you go out for a walk, like just being present and experiencing what's going on around you and really enjoying that. And how do you find, training and workouts and stuff like that in terms of effectiveness for, being present and stress relief, compared to like mindful walking and stuff like that?
Yeah, I won't lie, I do prefer the mindful walking than a workout. Now, I do have a client who I know uses workouts as her flow activity. So what I mean by flow activity is that when she's doing them, she's not thinking about anything else. She's not thinking about tomorrow's appointment or whatever. And it's a massive game changer for her to do, workouts or physical activity to allow her to escape from overwhelming feelings. For me, I mean, I do workouts, and because I suppose of the roller coaster journey that I've had, and I've had my fitness through some of that, because I, went on that best shape of my life journey, let's say, a couple of years ago. I do enjoy workouts and getting fitter for sure. But when I'm doing them, sometimes they're not enjoyable, right? But because yeah, I suppose I don't have the level of fitness that I used to have. But it's for sure something I want to achieve again, and I will get there by persevering and continuing with it. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And like you've already been making, loads of progress, because I mean, how many weeks is it now that we've been,
10.
together? 10 weeks already?
I think it's coming up on 10. Yeah.
Oh, nice. So yeah, that's like, it's probably one of the most difficult things is, just kind of not even staying motivated, but just staying consistent with training, because you're actively choosing to do the harder thing, which is never easy, by default.
Mm.
Yeah, it's like just like simple little things of like thinking of like how good you feel after a workout, and keeping the longer term goal in mind, and your whys, and all those sort of things. It makes it easier to stay consistent. But then, like, I posted a video yesterday about how if you want to be really sustainable and on track with training, it's a case of managing your intensity. So realizing you don't have to train at a 10 out of 10 all the time. You should probably rarely or never train at a 10 out of 10. Keep it at like a 7 or 8 out of 10 most days. And then if there's other days where you're not feeling as good, or your energy is lower, go at like a 4 or 5 out of 10 and do more of a recovery based session or something easier. And that's going to make it much more sustainable. So you can do it for a year or 6 months or 2 years, and, keep going with it instead of getting burnt out or injured, or, just not enjoying it. So yeah, that's really important. But yeah, I love the concept of flow. Because I listened to this audiobook, must be about 6 or 7 years ago now, by, I think he's Russian, Mihai Csikszentmihalyi.
Okay.
And I think he's the person who either made it popular or just came up with the idea of flow and getting into a flow state. So there's really good, like, short video on YouTube, like 10 or 15 minutes long, that goes through the whole concepts of the whole book. But yeah, I love the idea of flow, and I've always found some type of training where you get your heart rate up higher. Doesn't matter if it's workout or skipping or going for a run or whatever. I've always got so much more energy and much more, focus and everything else. So yeah, flow is a really interesting concept and something I've always been fascinated by.
Yeah, definitely. And I would say flow activity applies to exercise for sure, but it also is anything that kind of takes your attention, and there's a challenge in it for you, and your skill meets the challenge. That's when you're in your flow. Whether that's, like, for me, it could be baking, or playing golf. Or actually, I'm going playing golf today, and I haven't played golf in like forever. So
Nice.
I'm really looking forward to that. Yeah. And actually, I think I'm playing with my mom and my nephew. So and my nephew's only 6, and he's learning already to play golf. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Nice, good stuff. In a past life, I wanted to turn pro, but I was never.
You're only 29.
Yeah.
You can still do it.
Yeah, I was obsessed with golf between like 15 to 18, and I barely just got down to a 4 handicap. It was like 4.4, and you need to, if you want to be a teaching professional, you have to be at a 4 minimum or lower. But yeah, I made the mistake of playing all the time, getting burnt out, and then not enjoying it anymore. So yeah, quick up and down. But yeah, golf's very enjoyable for sure. It's because it's like you said, it's essentially like mindful walking, because it's like 3 or 4 hours, you're out in the fresh air. In Ireland, it's obviously going to be mostly rain, but maybe a bit of sunshine, and get into.
I'm hoping for dry weather today. We'll see.
Yeah, that sounds fun. Good stuff. And you mentioned as well that you were, in a slimming group, and you lost 5 stone. So I know we've talked about this, on a personal level, but I suppose it'd be good to give people an insight into why a lot of slimming groups are maybe not successful long term or sustainable. And I think a lot of that is centered around how hyper focused it is on the number on the scales, and how, how much a negative thing that can kind of become for most people.
Yeah, 100%. So look, I won't go into the slimming group, right? But
Of course, yeah.
there are a few. So yeah, look, I mean, it worked for me at the time. But I would say it worked at the time, and it got me to, I suppose, my ideal weight in, whatever that is.
Yeah.
In the real world. What I thought was my ideal weight. And yeah, look, it worked, right? But I suppose it is you do have to make a conscious effort to stick to the plan, and I know we've talked about the plan and falling off the plan, and there isn't, when you're healthy eating, I suppose, which is the new world that I see now, nothing is off limits. Now, nothing, to be fair, was off limits in the other world either, but there were certain things, that I suppose I realize now, for example, in regard to pasta, it would have been not counted in the other world. And once you had the relevant veg and fruit or whatever with it, whereas now I realize the small portion from a calorie perspective that's relevant, and what it means food wise, and that there's no protein in it. It's a new world now, I suppose, has opened up in regard to protein and all of that as well. And, choosing foods for the protein filling content as opposed to the quick fix maybe content, so that's been eye-opening for sure. And I suppose the scales has definitely been an eye-opener. I've had a battle with the scales all my life. I started losing weight when I was 21, and I'm 41 now, so that's 20 years. And the roller coaster journey I've had with IVF hasn't helped, right? And the mental health journey that I've had hasn't helped. But I mean, that's just an excuse, really. That's probably being a bit harsh on myself, but life happens, I suppose. And from a scales perspective, we've agreed, Elan, haven't we, that the scales is a way, and it's based on how I'm feeling, based on my clothes and all of that. Whereas in the other world, it's the slimming group. It's, how much weight have you lost this week? And you've gained, do you know where that has come from? And I suppose I know now, because of our conversations, Elan, that a girl will weigh differently at different parts of her cycle. It mightn't necessarily be that you've put on weight, it's just because of where you are in your cycle. So I suppose it's opened up a whole new understanding. I'm working on my relationship with food. Nothing is off limits now. I can choose to enjoy my time with my friends, and then just pull back calorie wise on the other days. And I suppose I have a deeper understanding, as I said, of the food content of food as well. But the main game changer, I suppose, for me has been the scales, and because I know recently we had a discussion, Elan, about I had stepped on the scales and I hadn't made the momentum I thought. And I was really disappointed, and it had led me to,
even though you actually had been getting fitter, stronger, and your clothes were fitting better, and you were feeling better energy wise, and
exactly, yeah. And I was just going to go there. All the other things were telling me, I mean, my underwear was getting looser, all of that was happening. I was feeling fantastic, doing really well mentally. And then I stepped on the scales, and it set me into a bit of a spiral, mentally, and, not choosing the right foods, and kind of going, oh, heck it, it's not working, and it was working. Everything else was telling me that it was working. So I stepped on the scales, and they didn't tell me what I wanted. And then, I did the opposite. So we've agreed that the scales is now in the attic, where it'll be found in 20 years time, or whenever. But I don't measure my success based on the scales anymore. I measure my success based on my clothes. There are certain clothes that I have chosen. Of course, they're Love Cherish clothes. Love Cherish is my favorite boutique in Charleville in County Cork. which is online. And so there's a pink suit that I am going to fit into and feel wonderful in at some point in the not too distant future. And I suppose, and now as well, I suppose the big thing about, what I'm doing with you, Elan, it's, it's not just about weight loss. It's about feeling well. It's the whole holistic approach. It's, focusing on my sleep, my resting heart rate, the no alcohol, and all of that, which I've chosen to do. Not that you've taught me to do. I've chosen to do that. So yeah, it's been game changing, Elan, and I'm really appreciative of us connecting. I don't know, whatever it was, 12 weeks ago or whenever, because you reached out to me. So thank you for that. And it's definitely changed my life for the better. It's taken the pressure off as well, because I felt in the slimming group, I felt the pressure to achieve the lass every week. And that's not normal or realistic. Nobody achieves, well, I don't anyway, achieve things in straight lines. It's a kind of a, squiggly journey to get there.
Oh, definitely.
That's life,
Yeah, progress in any way it's never linear. It's always like up, down, and then in the long term,
yeah,
it could look like a linear drop, but it's actually not in reality. And yeah, like the thing that's always really annoyed me, because I've worked with so many people who have been in multiple different types of slimming groups and Weight Watchers and all that kind of stuff. And the thing that really annoys me is like, well, there's multiple things, but some of the main ones have been the fact that you're not like empowered with very basic knowledge on like, here's a rough amount of calories that you could aim for to give you energy and make you feel good. But here's also the breakdown of macronutrients. Like you should probably aim for this amount of protein and carbs and fats, and realize that all macronutrients and micronutrients are important. You don't have to cut out anything or any one of those. Our body needs all of them for different reasons. Then probably the worst part is it's like the shame related to the weigh-in, the dreaded weekly weigh-in, because some people have told me awful things of like how they'd starve themselves for a few days before the weigh-in just so that they could go in and be like, oh yeah, you lost a kilo or 2 kilos and well done.
No, I never did that, because you're fooling yourself when you're at that crap,
Yeah, but that's not even the worst one. It's like some people starve themselves. Some people would make themselves go to the toilet. Some people would take some type of laxatives or diuretics. It would encourage other people, to have bulimic type behavior where they nearly make themselves get sick. And this is all just to be able to walk in there and be like, oh yeah, I've dropped this number for this week and now I'm successful. And it's like, it's so backwards, like, because weight on the scales is just one tiny metric, and in the larger picture it's not important. What's important is, when it comes to physique wise, what's important is your body composition. So how much muscle you have in your frame, how much body fat, that's going to be the bigger determinant of your overall health. But then of course, like your blood pressure, your resting heart rate, how good you're feeling mentally, your sleep, all these different things. But people just get so hyper obsessed on the scales, and it's just not sustainable or healthy, in the long run. So yeah, you can probably tell that like definitely pisses me off a lot of stuff that goes on, but I'll leave it there. I'm not going to go on a rant.
That's okay. I understand. I've been that bunny. Maybe not doing those things, but yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like what's your plan with moments of sparkle, over the next like 6 or 12 months, or any like events coming up, or like what do you kind of have plans in the future for it?
Yeah, so I'm running a 6-week course starting on the 17th of August. So that is a fertility roller coaster toolkit course. So it will equip girls, I suppose, with the skills to, they call it, reconnect with their sparkle within. It's mainly focused around mindfulness. It'll also involve journaling. And yeah, that's kind of the plan in the short term, I suppose, to continue to run courses and support girls in that space. And then I suppose onwards from that, then it's, continuing to build on the education out there, and that there is I suppose I'm passionate about continuing to support girls who are on the road and continue the good fight on social media to get the voice heard out there that, you know, you don't need to be alone and all of that. I do intend on running an in-person event in Lismore in County Waterford in September, because all my work to now has been mainly on Zoom, and I am a people person and I do thrive with creating relationships, you know, so I do intend to start in-person events, the first one being in September as well. And then who knows from there. I'm still working full-time as an accountant, so it's been fun to try and balance both. It's definitely getting busier, and I have even had people recently from a media perspective reaching out to have a chat about the work I'm doing and all of that. I do think there's a massive gap in Ireland from a fertility support space, and I do acknowledge the recent government announcement for IVF publicly funded one cycle, which is a massive step forward. Okay, it does have a lot of stipulations, and I know there was a lot of girls disappointed, but it's only the start of what's needed from an IVF support space in Ireland. And I suppose I do feel the work I'm doing at Moments of Sparkle will hopefully bridge some of that additional gap that's needed from a support perspective in the mental health space. So yeah, lots to come, just balancing everything at the minute.
Good stuff. Yeah, that's amazing. So what I'll do is I'll pop the link for that course, as well as the link for the in-person event, and I'll put it underneath this. So if you're watching this on YouTube or on LinkedIn or listen to it on podcasts, it'll be in the description. And then, you know, if you're interested in that kind of thing, then you'll be able to, you know, join. And that sounds amazing though. So wish you the best of luck with that. And 17th of August. So I'll get this up as quickly as possible. So it'll be up at least, you know, 2 weeks before the start of your course.
Great. Thank you, Elan.
No worries. So yeah, I think we'll probably leave it there for today. You know, being able to go through lots of really interesting things, and I'm sure we'd be able to speak for hours on lots of different topics, but I think we, you know, kind of covered a lot of the most important stuff today, which is amazing. So, you know, really appreciate your time. And for anybody, you know, who wants to, you know, follow or connect with you, obviously I'll pop your links below, but what would be some of the best places to, you know, get in touch?
Sure, yeah. So I'm online. I have a website, www.momentsofsparkle.ie. So that's where you'll find me. Also Instagram, I'm very active on Instagram, _Moments of Sparkle. LinkedIn, Emer Byrne, and I also have a Moments of Sparkle page. Facebook, Moments of Sparkle. So yeah, I'm everywhere.
Amazing. Good stuff. Nice. Well, thanks, Mel, for your time today. I'll end the recording here, and then we can have a quick chat after. But yeah,
Thank
great.
you.
Chat soon.